Doubts about Herman Cain and Rick Perry have boosted Newt Gingrich's chances of becoming a more viable competitor to frontrunner Mitt Romney. At least that's what at least one poll is saying. Our next guest is a key supporter of Mitt Romney and former senator from New Hampshire. He is now a Bloomberg contributing editor. Joining us now from Washington is John Sununu. Good morning, John. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Look, I hate to start with a correction, but I haven't endorsed any candidate. My father's endorsed Mitt Romney, but I have not. You probably misread a line or a quote in an AP story about my dad. Noted.
Thank you for that. A lot of people say Newt Gingrich's campaign has been revitalized, and a couple of polls show him ranking third. Beyond his showing in the debate, what accounts for this turnaround?
Well, you started in your opening. You've seen with Bachmann and with Perry, candidates surge and then sort of fade. And I think their supporters are looking for another candidate, certainly a conservative candidate. And right now, Mitt Romney isn't viewed as the most conservative person in the race. Newt Gingrich has done well in the debates. He's very smart, speaks very sharply. He can be a little confrontational, but I think for a lot of people in the conservative movement, they're looking for someone that will stand up, communicate conservative principles effectively, and they're taking a look at Newt Gingrich.
They're taking a look at him, but do they believe in his platform?
Well, look, that's always the great question. As the primary moves forward, whether or not any candidate can consolidate a surge like this into a strong and lasting base of support. Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry were not able to do that. It is the old cliche, only time will tell. But for Newt, one of the opportunities he has is that some of the early primary states, like New Hampshire or South Carolina, they're a little smaller. It's an electorate that can be reached without huge dollars, and they're electorates where people are really engaged in the process and in substance, and I think that plays well to some of his strengths.
Yeah, he even said that if he can manage to win South Carolina and Florida, then he can win the nomination. Is that realistic?
Well, look, anyone who wins New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Florida has a great chance of winning the nomination. So in a way, that's sort of classic Newt. He says something that's blatantly true, but it sounds like a little bit of a revelation. That has to be his strategy. Iowa is a bit more of an open game. The winner of the Iowa caucuses has rarely gone on to parlay that into real electoral success. But New Hampshire, South Carolina, and then Florida as an early primary state, they're all very important.
All right, Newt Gingrich came out solid in the foreign policy debate, but at the Bloomberg hosted debate on the economy, he was fairly quiet. Isn't that what the election ultimately will hinge on?
I think so. You ran a nice little foreign policy clip, and Newt tends to have sort of these sharp lines, a little bit of wry humor mixed in, that certainly get crowds responding. But ultimately, it's about the economy. People are going to want to hear about tax and regulatory policy that will help get investment moving in the country. They want to get a sense of where candidates are in terms of government activism and intervention. I think that's one of the things that's inhibited the economy, and it's certainly something that unifies Republicans. From more liberal Republicans to more conservative Republicans, I think there's a strong feeling we need to reform the tax code and really roll back some of the government activism we've seen from the Obama administration.
All right. Thank you so much for your thoughts. We've been speaking with John Sununu, former U.S. Senator from New Hampshire, also a Bloomberg contributing editor.